We got 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thanks to everybody who hit like and subscribe. I've now got 1,000 followers on my YouTube channel. All right, today we're going to talk about letters because I just finished lettering a 100-page graphic novel called Monitor. It's coming out by Broken Icon Comics. The absolutely beautiful line art is by Elisabeth Mkheidze, and this book should be coming out March 2020 at the Lexington Comic Con. And you can see that the book turned out really beautifully. I'm a writer, so I would write the script, send the script to Elisabeth. She would draw these thumbnails, and then she would start on the final lines, and then I would send the lines over to the colorist. His name is Łukasz. He's from Poland, and he would do the final colors. Now, I did not letter my first graphic novel, Savara. I paid someone to do it. And so, while it's easier to pay someone to do the letters for you, it's expensive, and also there are some incredible advantages to doing the letters myself. Now, I did not know how to letter before I started lettering Monitor, so I had to learn it all on the way. So when you're talking about letters, you're looking at two things, the style and the technical aspects. We're going to start with the style first because that word balloon was on the left and that's one of the rules, but also because the technical aspects are going to change over time. Photoshop's going to get updated, Illustrator's going to get updated, and the style is kind of timeless. It's more the philosophy of the letters. So first let's look at another graphic novel that I'm doing. It's called The Rum Running Queen. You can see some pages right here, and I had to decide what kind of letters I was going to do and what kind of word balloons I was going to do. So here you've got word balloons that are have blocky tails, but I can also do the pointy tails. These are the more traditional ones. And so when you're building a book, you've got to decide what you want the style of your letters to look like because that's going to convey meaning to the readers. Working on another book with Elisabeth called Monsterly, and so here's a blank page and you got to make these stylistic decisions. Well, how are we going to do the balloons? What kind of font are we going to use? This is Monsterly you're looking at right here, and you can see we went with these square tails on the balloons. Some of the balloons aren't quite 100% round, and we went with all caps, which is kind of the standard for comics. But for The Rum Running Queen, which is right here, this is set in the 1930s, so we did just kind of the standard round balloons with pointy tails, also in all caps. Because the book's set in the 1930s and we wanted to have it kind of a classic look to it, like a traditional comic look. Now, I didn't learn to letter myself. I went to two main websites, really. Balloon Tales, which is fantastic if you look at the tips, and also Blamblot. And I learned all of the techniques and all of the stylistic concepts from these two websites, really, and a couple blogs. But if you're going to do the letters yourself, which I recommend that you do if you're a writer, go to these two websites and check it out. It's all right here for you. Now, the way Monitor started is that Elisabeth and I did 8 pages, and then we wanted to pitch it to publishers. And so I actually didn't letter the first 8 pages. I paid a professional letterer, Sal Cipriano, and he lettered the first 8 pages. And so the design is actually by him, and he's the one who decided that he was going to do the letters this way, that you'll see through the whole book. Now, when I first saw the letters, I thought, these are a little bit funky. They're different. But this is a dystopian sci-fi, and so it made sense to make the balloons a little bit weird. They're not completely round. And also, it's not in all caps. The speech balloons are not in all caps, which is a big no-no in comics. But if you go to Penguin's website, you click on Alan Moore, and you go down and look at In Hell by Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell. It's a 5-time Eisner Award-winning book. Their text also is not in all caps. They've chosen to do it in regular caps. And what that means is that they're not using the crossbar I. So in comics, when you're using the first person singular nominative pronoun I, it should have crossbars on the top and bottom. but if you look at From Hell, it doesn't have those crossbars. So here's my advice when you're designing the book and you're creating the style for your letters. Come up with a lettering concept and then stick with those rules. So for monitor, we had the concept, the first rule that we're going to follow is that the word balloons are going to stay inside the panel borders when that speech is actually happening in that time period. So you can see the word balloons don't go outside of the panel borders. They butt up against it. Now, on the other hand, if the voice is taking place outside of time, like a voiceover or narration, or someone's talking but you're seeing something else, then those bubbles and balloons can go outside of the borders. So you can see a couple examples here where people are speaking and it's more of a voiceover, or if it's a flashback, or the voice is coming off from the side, or in this case it's like a radio that's coming over the intercom, or if it's somebody's memory, the voice can go outside of the border. Now, another rule we had was that sound effects could go outside of the borders, so like the frog's ribbit, or bam, or whoosh, or pow, or clang. It kind of gives that sense of excitement that these sounds can jump outside of time. Now, late in the lettering process, I realized that there were a lot of points where my robot character was talking to another character, and there was a lot of back and forth. And so what I did is I changed the robot voice to blue. I not only had these little robotic electronic balloon tails, but I changed the robot voice to blue, and I occasionally put an eyeball, like a robot eyeball, so that it would be very clear who is speaking. Then a couple of other things. I just wanted to make sure that the lettering matched the tone and the feel and the emotion. So sometimes you've got quiet word balloons, sometimes you've got word balloons going behind people when they're running through the streets and zigzagging out of different people. My fear when I started lettering was that the letters and word balloons were going to ruin the art, that it was going to hide stuff. But as I went on, I realized that the letters actually enhance the pages. There are a lot of pages that I like better with the words than without. So this is definitely like a graphic design element that you're adding, and although you are hiding some of the art, your letters are going to be an addition to the art, and it's going to make a complete picture. And by the time I got to the end, I was having a lot of fun, and so I just played around with stuff. Like here's an example where this guy's climbing up these ladders, and so I had the balloons go all over the place, zigzagging around to show where he climbed. In this one, Eric falls and he screams the name Talira, but it gets cut off by the panel border. Here, this guy's screaming no, but it's behind the ladder because he's falling. And then once he falls off the spaceship, I was doing the letters and I just turned his word balloons because he's falling, and so I just turned it. I was just having fun at that point. Here's an image where Eric is smashing his hoverbike through glass. And there's glass flying everywhere, and his reflection is in the glass. So when I was doing his scream, I just copied the scream and did it 3 times, so his reflection is screaming. And then close to the very end of the book, there's a sequence where Talira is reaching out her hand and asking Eric to come on board. But then next to that, there's a reflection of her in the glass because the glass is breaking. And we see Talira's face in the glass. And so I just lettered that also, but I put different text because this is kind of a cat and mouse game and Talira's been lying to him. And so I put different text in that. So there were a lot of advantages to lettering the graphic novel myself. First of all, it was cheaper. Second, if I wanted to make a change, I didn't have to write the letter and say, can you change the text in this word balloon? I could just do it myself. But I think most importantly, I was able to improvise, I was able to experiment, I was able to have fun. I was able to make changes on the fly based on what I saw in the art and what I saw on the expressions of the characters' faces. So even though it was extremely time consuming, it was very difficult, I had to learn all this stuff from scratch, it was definitely worth it. Now, you may have come here to get information about the technical side of lettering. What software do you use? But like I said in the beginning, the software is going to change through time, and some people are going to use one tool, other people are going to use another tool. I use Photoshop because I'm comfortable in Photoshop. Been a photographer for a long time, studied Photoshop in classes, so I feel really comfortable there. And when I go into Illustrator, I feel really, really uncomfortable. So I stay in Photoshop. I know a lot of letterers are going to do it in Illustrator because Illustrator is vector-based. I tried it, but it was very challenging for me to get accustomed to it, and I went back to Photoshop. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the technical because there's tons of tutorials on YouTube. But I'm basically making a shape with a fill of white and a stroke of black, and then I'm using the pen tool to either add shapes for the tails or to add anchor points throughout to change the shape of the word balloon. It's important that you've got the stroke on the inside. It looks really strange when the stroke of your shape is on the outside. And then you use your pen tool to either add anchor points like I'm doing right here. Throughout monitor, I would add anchor points and then move them around to create those weird shaped word balloons, right? And I would just shift them around and move them around like that with the selection tool. Or you use the pen tool to add your tails. So I'm going to make another shape, and you can grab your selection tool, which can be either black or white. And when you click on an anchor point, these handles come out. And you can pull those handles, which will make your word balloon a little more round. Your selection tool is very powerful. You can easily duplicate shapes. And when you grab your pen tool, this is a very important menu up here. It will let you decide whether you're going to combine your new path with your shape or whether you're going to subtract. And that's how you're going to add your tail to your balloon. One of the reasons why I love working in Photoshop is because your shapes are not permanently connected. Your tail is not permanently connected to this balloon. At any time you can take the selection tool, and as long as the anchor points are black, you can move the whole thing around. You can also hit Command T, which is transform, and you can rotate your tail or any part of the shape. You can also use the selection tool to very easily duplicate a tail or any shape, and so it makes it really easy to very quickly modify a balloon once you've made it. If you've made a mistake or you want to tweak it, it's very, very easy to tweak. Now when you've got the selection tool active, you can just go to a shape and click on it, and even if you're not clicked on that layer, it'll automatically jump to that layer and you can start manipulating the anchor points. So you don't have to go into your layers palette and fool around and try to find that layer. It'll find it for you. Now what happens if you've got a panel border? Well, go select your shapes, select a square, and hit the option button on the Mac, and that's the subtract shape. And you create a rectangle and you subtract it from your word balloon. So now it's time to add some text. One thing that's really important is that fonts are proprietary. They are IP, and you need to buy a license for them if it's a commercial font. And now go to your pen tool, hit Combine Shapes. Make sure you are already selected on the shape you want to add a tail to. And then what you're going to do is just add your tail by combining the shapes by making a shape with the pen tool, and it's going to attach. Now I do my lettering at a very large size because I want it to be sharp, and Photoshop is a pixel-based editor, not a vector-based, so I do my lettering at a very high resolution, 600 dpi, usually 200% of the regular page size. So that's all for this time. Thank you again for everybody who hit subscribe. Please subscribe and share, and feel free to write me a message or leave a comment, ask me questions about anything in my process, or tell me what video to do next.